Hello, my name is Eamon Kelly, and I'll be taking you through the A-Level IT 9626 2017 May paper for Animation section, question 2, and I'll be using Adobe Animate. This is what the animation will look like. Okay, this is specifically for students studying the IT 9626 course, but suitable for a number of people who might be working with Adobe Animate. Some of the skills that you'll learn or practice will be setting the frame size and the number of frames per second. We'll be working a lot with layers in this animation, animating text to appear and disappear, converting images and text to symbols so that we can work with motion tweens, fading in and fading out of text, rotating an image and making it grow in size. The animation will play continuously, so we need to loop it, and then we need to export it in a format that's suitable for a website, so an MP4 or maybe a GIF file. Again, as I say in most of my videos, for students studying for the exam, I would advise that you highlight the examination paper, as I have done here. And you can see this one here is quite busy. There's quite a lot to do in this one, and I'll try to make it as quick as possible. And secondly, to have a notepad open. So when I'm reading through this here, I take notes on what I want to maybe use or maybe even copy and paste into my Adobe Animate file, remembering that Notepad doesn't hold on to fonts and formats. Okay, so let's get started. Let's go to just look at this here quickly. I'm not going to read through all of this here. Maybe you might just pause the screen and read through this yourself. But there are a few things at the beginning. I will be referring back to it, but at the beginning here we have the aspect ratio of 16:9 or 512 by 288 pixels, background pale blue, and then after 2 seconds hungry must appear, and a letter at a time for half a second. So I'll be referring back to this, but you might just pause the screen, read through this here. If you want to take your own notes, do so. Okay. So the typical screen that you'll have when you open Adobe Animate is something like this here. You have different options, but we're going to use the HTML5 canvas. I'm going to, on the right hand side, it's just sometimes it lags a little bit. I'm going to go and actually save this straight away. Now, I have saved it with the name that's given at the very end of this task, but it's a good idea to save it with this from the beginning. Also, sometimes students save it with a miscellaneous name or just something that comes to mind, and then later they've said, but if you save it from the beginning, then you don't need to worry about when you're saving it as an MP4 or a GIF and so on. So I'm going to Control C here. I'm going to go in File, Save As. I'm going to, and in here you see that already I have my exam folder created here, and I'll put in, so the exam officer will give you the first, instead of exam, will give you the information here, then you put in your center number and candidate number here. Just click in here, and this is a FLA file, Adobe Animate file. I'm going to Control V here and just copy this in here and save. Next, I'm going to just move this into a little bit further to the top, because I need as much space as possible for the timeline in this case here. Go over to my notes, and it was 512 by 288. My stage, Control C. So go over here to the right hand side. So I've got my stage at the moment. So I want to change this here, Control V, and then hide this 288. You see here, for example, FPS frames per second is 24, which is the default. On the bottom of your timeline, you also have the 24 is just faded out here with seconds, but I'm going to change this to 30. I just find it easier to work with 30. And at the bottom, if you want to stay with 24, that's fine, but then you need to follow this here at the bottom. Next, I'm asked to, the stage has to have a color, light blue. Again, in an exam, I would not spend too much time trying to find the ideal blue. This here is a light blue, and that's fine for me. I'm going to go down to the bottom left-hand side, and I'm going to name my layer. So background. Now just go back to the exam paper. So now I want hungry in capital letters to appear. It must be white, 48, and sans serif. I'm going to go for Arial. And okay, so starting with H, U, N. So what I'm going to do here, you could put all this on one layer, but I'm actually going to put a layer for each letter. I'm going to lock the background and type it on the block, capital sub at H. Should be fairly quickly. Okay. Back to Hungary. The screen. Okay, after 2 seconds, H should appear. So 2 seconds. Click on this here. Insert. Keyframe. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go over here to my background. So it's 2 and then 3, so we'll have at least go to 5 seconds. I'm going to insert a frame here. Okay. So here, back over to my H, I'm going to go to the right hand side. Use a little bit to the tools. It's a little bit smaller. Okay. Oh no. Okay, I'm going to click on the T here. Now we are told we want the text to be white, so I'm actually going to choose the color, the property straight away. So I'm going to fill this here with white. I think it was 48. 48. Okay. Back down to my timeline, clicking this here, and press. So this is going to be H. I'm going to resize the text box. Do this here, like. Okay. I'm going to click on the selection tool, and I'm going to move this up here. Something like this here. You can put all the letters together or maybe just spread them out a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to lock now the H there, and then I'm going onto the U, which should be a half second later, so that should be 75. Again, insert keyframe. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go all the way over to the end, and I'm going to just make it a little bit faster. I'm going to select all of these together, and I'm going to right click and insert frame. Okay, back over to the U. Oh, I'm going to go back to the H actually. Unlock it. Click on this here. I'm going to Control C. So now I have it in my clipboard. Lock this again. Go back to. Oh no, I've done something wrong here. Or have I? Okay, unlock this here. Okay, so I've copied it, so Control V, and let's see if this comes in. Now here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to paste it in each time, but just click on this here and again, I'm going to move this into position, something like this here. Again, I'm going to lock this here, just a little bit easier to lock it each time. I'm going to go to Insert Keyframe, Control V, and this should be N. Selection tool, move into place as quickly as possible. Lock the layer up to G. Sometimes this should be 105. That's here. Insert keyframe. Control V. G. Move it into place, more or less. We'll come back to this later on. Lock the layer over to 4 seconds. Insert keyframe. Control V. Double click on this here. Or selection tool, move it into place. Lock the layer onto Y, and here we need to put 103.5. Insert keyframe, Control V, and Y. Selection tool, move it into place. Okay, I'm now going to unlock all of these here because I want to align them on the screen, so I need to do so. Okay, I'm going to go over to the Align tool here, excuse me. Do something like this here. And spread them out like this here. Again, I could spend a bit of time on this if I wanted, but I'm not going to bother. I'm going to move this down to about midway. Okay, good. Click off of this here, and let's see. Good. Okay, next. Again, I'm going to lock all of these here. Back to my exam paper. The text must disappear then. Okay, man, in the bottom right hand corner, suitable size, must bring that in. And a white rectangle must appear in the center of the frame. The rectangle must be a suitable size to display the short text, so this text here. Okay, so next we're going to a layer for man, a layer for the white rectangle, and then also we need a layer for the text one. So I'm going to do those together. Man. We got a bit of space here, so I'm going to move this up a little bit here. So man, next one I said was rectangle. And text. And it's text 1. Okay, the man I'm going to put in a keyframe here. Insert keyframe. The rectangle must also come in at the same time. So I'm going to insert keyframe here too. And let's go back to the tiny as well. So the man, bottom right suitable, the rectangular staff. This is for 3 seconds, the others last longer. Okay. My source files are here. And bring that in. Okay, this has come in, it's very large, so just click off this. I'm going to go over to my transform tool over the right hand side, free transform tool, and oh no, I'm on the rectangle. Then we'll need to go back to my timeline, make sure that this image is selected. Now over to my transform tool, and I'm going to go to my selection tool and just move him in here into the bottom right hand corner. Bring this back up. Not sure why. Well, let's see. Okay, now I'm going to lock this here and bring in on the rectangle over to my right hand side, rectangle tool, and let's look at some of the, can we look at some of the properties here? Well, let's see what we have first of all. Okay, this is quite good. The fill here, oh, there's a border here, we don't need this border. And then text. I'll go and collect my text from here. I put this in earlier on. Control C. Need to insert keyframe. Go over to the right hand side, text tool. Also check the size of this text. This is a little bit different to the other one. So it's going to be black this time, 32 points and sans serif Arial. So here it's going to be black, 32 points and Arial. Okay. And then I'm going to click on the screen, make this text box a little bit larger, otherwise it'll go on to the next line. I'm going to Control V. Okay. Then I'm going to go into the selection tool, just move this into place. Now this is supposed to stay, or should stay on the screen for 3 seconds, I think. 3 seconds, but it must fade in and fade out. Therefore, what we need to do, I'm going to lock this rectangle here as well. What we need to do here is go to right click on this here, and we need to convert it to a symbol. And I'll call this text1 symbol. What I also need to do is insert a motion tween here. It's going to be fading in and fading out. This should last for, make this a little bit smaller at the bottom, see what I'm doing here. So go to 8, insert frame. I'm going to go halfway. This is going to fade in and fade out. So midway through it should be, I should be able to see this completely. So I think it's 9.5. I'm going to, so clicking on the timeline, but also clicking on the symbol, go over to the right hand side, and I want this to fade in. So go to color effects, alpha, and I want this to be 100. So, and it's automatically put in the keyframe here. Let's go back to the first one, click on this again, and I see it's also 100, so I need this to come in and bring it to 0 here. I go to the last one, again click on the symbol, and I'm going to have this fade out. Now I also see that my rectangle, I'm going to go back to unlock my rectangle. See, this is not showing up. And Mander, so I need to put these two in as well. And insert frames, so they show as well. I'm going to go back to the very beginning just to play that to make sure that it's working properly. Good. Okay, next I'm going to lock those again. And we have, bring my this up a little bit, add a new layer. Oops, I'm going to move this layer above the other one. and this is going to be text 2. Text 2. Let's go back over to the exam paper. So fade in and fade out. In the rectangle, the text our food is delicious must appear for 3 seconds. Fade in and fade out as well. We've given the font size. The rectangle must, and then the rectangle and then all must disappear. So another 3 seconds and they all must disappear. So back over to here. So we're going to insert keyframe. I'm going to over to the 11 second. So insert frame. See if I can, without unlocking the other 2 layers, can I actually just insert? So we want these to show as well. Right click, and they do. Okay. So now we're going to the text 2. Again, from earlier, I have my text here. Control C here. Back over here, right hand side. We have the settings from previously, so I'm just going to click on this here. Again, I'm going to make sure that my text box is large enough at this stage. And Control V. I'm going to move this down. I need to go over to my right hand side, to my selection tool, turn this blue, and then move this using the arrow keys into place. Or again, I could also use the mouse to move it into place. I could also just click over here on the alignment and just make sure that it's okay. Now, looking at this here, I'm not sure why the blue line is okay. So looking at this here, we want to fade in and fade out like we did the last one. So again, we need to we've highlighted the first frame in this one here, so we need to convert this symbol. We'll call this text 2. We need to insert our motion tween. I'm clicking on this here. Okay, so now clicking on the symbol, text 2, I'm going to back over to properties, down to alpha for transparency, and it's coming in at 0. Fine. I'm going to go midway through, so 285. I could insert a keyframe, but I don't need to. So again, clicking again on the symbol, because we see at the right hand side at the moment, the properties are for the timeline. So I'll click on this here, back over to color effects alpha, and I want it to be fully visible. Click on this here, and the keyframe's gone in. And finally, on the last one, I want to click on this again, the symbol, and I want it to disappear at this stage. I'm going to go file over here, file and save. Good. I'm going to lock this layer and onto the next layer. And this is the layer where we need to bring in the logo created in task 1, and it must rotate 360 degrees and then stay for 2 seconds. So go to we call this layer logo. Insert keyframe here. Insert keyframe here. Let's make it Control Z. Edit. Insert keyframe. Let's go with this for the moment. Okay. So now I'm going to bring in the logo from previous exercise. Again, if you don't have the logo, just pick any image. And here we've our logo. Now it must be small in size, and then it must more than double in size. So we're going to just move this into the center. because I'm clicking on the logo at the moment, I'm going to go over here to the right hand side and change the dimensions here. So maybe half that, 100. Now you could also just do it with using the mouse, but I prefer to do it this way. I'm going to click on the image. I'm going to go to alignment. I'm going to center like this here. Next, oh, I think I've made a mistake. Oh no, it's okay. Okay. I'm going to insert keyframe here. So the logo is here. Click on the logo again. Not sure why it's not selecting. Maybe it is. Okay, we said logo. Okay. I need to, okay, it is selected. So then go to insert, motion tween. And clicking on the timeline, not on the logo itself, go over to properties. In the timeline, we want this to rotate. So you see rotation shows up. We want to rotate, we've got clockwise and we've got counterclockwise. We want to rotate it clockwise just one time. I'm going to play that to see if that's working. Good. Okay, back to this first one again, or to the last one again. We also want this to change to increase in size. We'll go to 250 over in properties, 250. I want this to be centered. Okay, let's play this again to see if this is working. Okay, I'm having a problem here. What I'm going to do, if you have the same case, if it happens to you in an exam, I could try fiddling around with this here, but I'm actually going to delete this again. I'm going to delete this layer. I'm going to create the layer again, logo. Go in here, insert keyframe. I'm going to bring in the logo. Now the logo I brought in already, so it might ask me to overwrite the one that's there. It does. Replace. Okay. I want this logo to be 100. Properties at 100. This stage. I want to insert a keyframe here. Oh, I also want this centered. Clicking on that here, clicking on this here, going to align, going to 12 seconds. I want this to be 250. And before I do that, I need to convert this to a symbol. Insert motion tween, insert keyframe. Let's change to 250. 250. I want to center this here. Go back here and display that. I think at the moment it's okay. So I've forgotten something. I've forgotten to rotate it. Back to this here. Click on this here. I need to click on the timeline and not on the. So I see on the right hand side I've got properties again, rotate, and I'm going to choose clockwise, and then this counterclockwise, and then 1. Let's see how this, if this works. Good. Okay. Now it also must stay on the screen for another 2 seconds, so up to 14 seconds. So insert. Okay, I'm going to go File, save this. Now this is quite a long video. Back to the beginning and play. Let's see. Good. Okay. So next, the animation must, so the logo must then display for 2 seconds, which it is doing. So then the animation must be set to loop. Let's go to it just so that people are familiar with this here. If we go to back over here to properties, I'm just clicking down on the timeline at the moment, and we have these publish settings. If I click on this here, we see that it's looping, loop timeline. So don't need to make any changes to that there. I'm also asked then to, the animation must be exported in a suitable format for a website. So we're going to export it as a GIF. And we're also going to export it as an MP4. So first export as a GIF. Now, what I'd recommend here is you pay attention to the folder that you're actually saving this to, because I often find that it actually defaults to somewhere other than where I expect. And there's something strange happening at the moment. I'm not sure why this one has shown up, but just wait a second. Again, that's why it's also a good idea to make sure that you save your animation throughout, because otherwise you could have either lagging or possibly a crash. I hope that any students that are doing the exam, they're working with at least a Core i5 and ideally a Core i7. While that's happening, I'm just going to go back over here and just comment on a few things. Again, just some of the recommendations that I normally mention at the very end, but create a folder for all your exam files at the beginning. Okay, so and ask your examiner for the name of the folder, and then you add in the center number and candidate number. Again, save the animation file, even though it is an Adobe Animate file, and you're not asked to submit this at the end. Save it with the title that you're given. It will save you time later on. Again, spending a few minutes at the beginning just looking through the question, highlighting it, even taking notes on it, and just asking yourself, is this the quickest way? I've just completed the animation, and you might decide, okay, actually putting in Hungary all in one timeline might be a quicker way of doing so. And that in that case, you would have put time frames, a keyframe for each of the letters. But I'm happy to do it this way, I think. Okay, so we're back over here. So I'm going to click on Save. I don't see where. Let's see what happens when we say Save. Okay, it's giving me the option of the folder. Okay, and it's going in here. So here the name, as I say, is automatically shows up here, and we're saving as a GIF. And click on Done. And you see it appears. Okay. I'm going to go back in one more time. I think it's a good idea that you do the same. And I'm going to export it as a video file. Again, I'm going to click on this here because it sometimes tends to default elsewhere. I'm going to go into May exam folder. And this time it's going to export as a MOV file, even though I want it as an MP4, but that's fine. I'm going to click on this here. It's going to save as a MOV file and export it. What's going to happen then within about 30 seconds, depending on your computer, the Adobe Media Player will open at the bottom of your screen. You click on that and we'll convert it then to an MP4. Again, it can take some time. I'm also using a screen recorder, so this would slow this process down a little bit. I'm using the screen recorder OBS at the bottom. So I've also got PDFs open and also Notepad open. So this is why maybe the media player is just taking a little bit longer than it might do otherwise. Here we go. Okay, so over here, downloads 2000, and that's okay. It's going into the correct folder. I'm just going to click here on the right hand side. This is Start Queue. Click on this here because it was or it is an MOV file. I want to, and you'll see it converting this. So the source file MOV, and it'll be converted to an MP4. I can go into my folder, exam folder here, and here you've got your MP4 here, and you've also got your GIF file here as well. You've also got your MOV file here, and you can also leave this in. I'm going to close this here. Okay. And close this here. Great, I hope this helps. I think it would be well worthwhile just going through this a number of times. There's a lot to learn. Okay, thank you for watching.